The sound of the engine leaving the driveway became her new morning alarm. Every day at exactly 6:37 a.m., Jungkook's car would glide out of the mansion gates the same way he glided out of her life. One sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, the sheets on his side still perfectly smooth. The faint trace of his calling lingered in the air, expensive, intoxicating, and utterly hurtless. She dragged a sigh past her lips and muttered under her breath, half to herself, half to the emptiness that surrounded her. Another morning, another ghost pretending to be my husband. Downstairs, the breakfast table looked like a scene out of a luxury magazine, golden cutlery, freshly brewed coffee, untouched toast, everything perfect, everything lifeless. Mrs. Lee, the housekeeper, hovered near the doorway. Ma'am, should I keep his plate warm? No need, warm or cold, he won't touch anything I make. Anyway, the older woman hesitated before quietly nodding and leaving. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. It had been like this for months. Conversation had turned into polite notes. Smiles had become rare, reserved only for public appearances. The flawless CEO couple who graced every charity gala hand in hand, eyes empty. That morning she walked to his study, knocking softly on the half open door. Jungkook sat there in a perfectly tailored black suit, his sleeves rolled up, typing away, expression blank, movements efficient, almost mechanical. You didn't even touch your breakfast again. He didn't look up. I wasn't hungry. You are never hungry? Maybe that's why our marriage is starving too. That made him pause and just for a second. Then, with that calm, cool voice she had grown used to. Don't turn everything into drama wine. It's too early for your clever remarks. Oh, I didn't realize silence was your love language. My mistake. He finally glanced up, dark eyes sharp, unreadable, the kind of gaze that could freeze a confession midair. If you're doing being sarcastic, I have work to finish. Of course you do. You always have work, just never on us. There was no shouting, no slammed doors, just that quiet, dull ache that came from trying too hard for too long. Later that day, she found the coffee mug she had left for him, the one with printed in soft cursive sitting in the sink, untouched, lipstick mark fading. She smiled bitterly. Guess that's my answer. The mansion was big enough to hold 1,000 egos, but none of them ever carried his voice. Every night she heard his footsteps passing her bedroom door, heading straight to his office. The light under his door stayed on until dawn. Sometimes she wondered if he was more married to his company than to her. Other times she stopped wondering because even wondering means she still cared. The rain had started somewhere between dusk and disappointment. By the time Wine reached Jungkook's office, the city lights were melting into the wet glass windows, and the sound of thunder felt quieter than her own heartbeat. She stood in the hallway for a moment, balancing the small tray in her hands, warm food neatly covered, a quiet attempt at peace. Maybe he hadn't eaten again. Maybe she still cared too much. When she pushed open the door, the room smelled of coffee and expensive exhaustion. Jungkook sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, and papers scattered like unfinished apologies. He didn't even look up. She should have called before coming. You never pick up. Her voice was calm, too calm. He kept typing, the sound of the keyboard filling the distance between them. You have been working late every night. I thought maybe you would forgotten what a meal tastes like when it's made for you. That made him pause for a second, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then he sighed, cold, detached, effortless. You don't need to act like a wife for appearances, Vine. We both know what we are. The words landed like glass shattering in her chest. She stared at him, the man she once believed and had a heart that only she could thaw, and realized how wrong she had been. Oh, and what exactly are we, Jungkook? Strangers with matching rings? He finally met her eyes, dark, steady, almost different. If the label fits for a heartbeat, silence devoured the room. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't joy but survival. You're right, stranger it is. At least strangers talk sometimes. You can't even look at me without flinching. Don't twist this into emotion, Wine. You knew what you were marrying into. Oh, I knew. I just didn't realize I was marrying a machine. His jaw tightened, not anger, not regret, just restraint. The kind of restraint that hurts more than cruelty. Go home, it's late. She stepped closer, her heels tapping softly against the marble floor. Home, you mean that house where silence sleeps between us? No thanks, I have had enough of pretending to. For the first time in months, Jungkook's composure cracked, barely visible, but there he looked at her, something flickering behind his eyes sketched. Maybe, or pity, she wasn't sure which was worse. Don't worry, Mr. Jones, you will get what you want soon enough. A wife who finally stops trying. She turned and walked out before he could say a word, the click of her heels echoing through the office, sharp, final, and more powerful than any goodbye. Behind her, Jungkook's voice never came, only silence followed, the kind he was always best at. The next morning came wrapped in a silence too thick to breathe. The fight from the night before played in Vine's head like a record that wouldn't stop skipping. She sat by the window, sipping cold coffee when her phone lit up, Mrs. Jones flashing across the screen. Her thumb hovered for a second. She wasn't sure she had the strength to pretend, but she answered anyway. Wine. I was just talking to Jungkook's assistant. His birthday is coming up in 2 days, and I want you both here. You will come, right? One swallowed hard, forcing her voice into something steady. Of course, mother, I wouldn't miss it. Good girl. You know, he works too hard. It would mean the world to him if you were there. He always listens when it's you. A bitter laugh almost escaped her lips, but she masked it quickly. I'll be there, I promise. When the call ended, her chest felt tight. The irony stung. He listens when it's you. If only that were true. That night, Wine went to the closet and pulled out a dress she hadn't worn in years. Deep crimson silk, the same one from their engagement night. It still smelled faintly of roses and champagne, of promises that aged faster than love. She stood before the mirror, fastening the last earring, staring at her reflection one last time. Wine, not as his wife, just as the woman who finally learned to stop begging. Her reflection smiled back, not weak, not broken, but free. The Joan mansion glittered that night, chandeliers dripping gold, laughter echoing through marble halls, the scent of wine and lilies mingling in the air. Everyone seemed happy, everyone except the couple at the center of it. Wine entered gracefully, her red dress catching every flicker of light. Conversations paused for a second, admiration, whispers, envy. And then there he was, John Jungkook, the man of the hour, perfectly composed, greeting guests with that faint corporate smile, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Their eyes met across the room, a brief, sharp silence, then he looked away first. There she is, my beautiful daughter in law. Oh, Jungkook, look, doesn't she look lovely? He turned to her, a polite smile tugging at his lips. She always does, but his tone was as flat as champagne gone warm. Careful, Jungkook, that almost sounded like a compliment. A few people nearby laughed, unaware of the tension coiled beneath their words. Later, as the night deepened, the music softened and the candles burned low. Jungkook stood surrounded by colleagues and old friends, his secretary among them, eyes sharp, lips too red. Wine approached with a small box in her hands, wrapped in black velvet. The crowd noticed attention, turning cameras ready. Oh, Wine brought a gift. How sweet. Go on, son, open it. Jungkook took the box from her hands, his fingers brushing hers for the first time in months. The contact was brief enough to make him glance up, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. He lifted the lid inside, neatly folded beneath a single black ribbon, divorce papers. The laughter around them stilled. Glasses froze midair, even the music seemed to stop. One smiled softly, her voice steady but soft enough that only he could truly hear. Happy birthday, Jungkook. You wanted freedom, didn't you? Consider it my final gift. He looked at her, truly looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. His composure cracked, voice low and strained. You are serious? Do I look like I'm joking? His mother's confused voice broke through the silence. Wine, what is this? You turned to her gently, eyes soft with affection, just something your son has been wanting for a long time. The crowd whispered, uncertain whether to stay or disappear. Jungkook's jaw clenched, his knuckles turning white around the paper. You really know how to make a scene. No, Jungkook, you made the scene. I just give it an ending. Then she smiled, not bitter, not broken, just done. And as she walked away, the sound of her heels against marble echoed through the room like a verdict. For the first time, Jungkook didn't know what to say, and for the first time, she didn't care. The party lights still glimmered behind her as one stepped out into the cold night. Rain had started to fall, slow at first, like the sky was whispering its sympathy. Her heels clicked against the marble steps, each step lighter than the last. For the first time in years, she felt weightless. Behind her, the door burst open. Wine, his voice stayed restrained but edged with something raw. It wasn't anger this time. It was confusion, shock, maybe even fear. She stopped but didn't turn. Her hand tightened around her clutch as the rain soaked through her hair and the crimson silk clung to her skin. She descended the steps slowly, the paper still in his hand, the ink already smudged by rain. You think this is how we end things in front of everyone? That's how we live, Jungkook pretending for everyone. I just gave her performance a curtain call. He exhaled sharply, frustration flickering across his face. You are unbelievable. I learned from the best. She finally turned, then eyes steady, voice low but merciless. You could have asked me to stay just once. You could have tried. He looked at her, really looked as if the realization had just sunk in that the woman standing before him wasn't bluffing this time, that she meant it. That she was done. The rain intensified, washing away the last traces of the celebration. Do you think walking away fixes anything? It doesn't fix it, it ends it, and that's what you wanted, isn't it? For a moment, he couldn't speak. The mask, that cold, perfect composure cracked, his jaw tightened, his eyes darted away. He had no idea what to do with this silence now that it wasn't hers to bear. You know what the cruelest part is? What? I kept waiting for you to fight for me, but you never did. And now I don't even want you to. She smiled faintly, not mockingly, not vengeful, just free. Then she turned, her heels splashing through puddles as she walked toward the waiting car. Jungkook stood there, rain dripping down his face, the papers trembling in his hands. His lips parted as if to call her name, but nothing came out. She didn't look back, not once. The car door closed, and with it, the last echo of her presence disappeared into the storm. He stood there long after she was gone, the party lights behind him, the rain before him, and silence all around. For the first time, June Jungkook, the man who felt nothing, felt everything. 3 months later, the June mention no longer echoed with footsteps. Only silence, the same silence he once preferred, now clung to the walls like punishment. Jungkook sat alone in his office, the same one where she once stood holding that dinner tray still drying. The smell of her perfume had faded long ago, but memory was a cruel thing. It stayed even after everything else left. The divorce had gone through smoothly, the papers signed, the media handled discreetly. Everyone called it a mutual separation. But Jungkook knew better, nothing about it had been mutual. She had simply stopped waiting. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the clock, 6:37 a.m. The same hour he used to leave every morning, the same hour she used to wake to an empty bed. A bitter smile ghosted across his lips. Now the bed stayed empty because she wasn't there. It was a quiet Saturday when he saw her again. He hadn't planned to fade, just had a sense of irony. A charity gala downtown, flashing lights, the hum of polite conversations, and then, through the crowd, she appeared radiant, poised, alive. Wine, the same woman he once thought he would outgrow, now looked like someone he could never reach. Her laughter, soft, genuine, filled the room. She wore white this time, no reds, no symbolism of pain, no haunting memories, just peace. A man stood beside her, smiling, not possessive, just warm. He said something that made her laugh again, and Jungkook's chest tightened with something he hadn't felt in years. Regret, he stood there frozen, a glass of untouched wine in his hand. For a moment, their eyes met across the room. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Just offered him a faint, polite smile, the kind you give to someone you once knew, not someone you once loved. And that was what finally broke him because it wasn't hate that shone in her eyes. It was nothing. She had moved on, and he was still standing where she left him. Later that night, Jungkook returned to the mansion, his tie undone, his heart heavy. He walked into the kitchen, opened a cupboard, and there it was, the mug she had once left for him. Love you. He ran a thumb over the faded letters, and for the first time, the words didn't feel ridiculous. They felt like a wound that would never close. He whispered into the silence, voice barely above a breath. You did love me, didn't you? But the mansion didn't answer, it never did. Outside, the rain began again, soft, steady, familiar, and this time he didn't look away because some punishments don't come as storms. They come as quiet, the kind you once wished for, and now you can never escape.